by the undergraduate government of Boston College Student Senate. Unfortunately, the administration deemed this recognition purely symbolic, but symbolism has not hindered WHI's goals, who through student support and support from academic departments was able to raise almost up to $2,000 to fight breast cancer and to host numerous discussions, one in conjunction with the HANA Leadership Council, Women of Color Caucus, and the UGBC Women's Issues. That was a discussion of Loretta Ross on human rights, and we were able to host a discussion on the global gag rule. Other women's groups on campus that have been very supportive of the Women's Health Initiative and feminism on campus are UGBC Women's Issues and the Women's Resource Center, which is right behind us. The Women's Resource Center serves as a framework for community building of women of diverse backgrounds on this campus. They host discussion groups for LGBT women, survivors of sexual assault, and victims of eating disorders. The Women's Resource Center also has an array of literature on these subjects and hosts and finances several campus-wide campaigns to raise awareness on these issues. The Women's Resource Center and UGBC Directors of Women's Issues provide a strong support for women on this campus. However, without the recognition of the Women's Health Initiative on campus, women will not be able to be fully represented and supported as student members at BC. Let's go on with our tour. Alright, now we've reached the $1 Million Stairs. If you're wondering what these signs are, these are actual student testimonials of their experiences of injustice on BC's campus. These testimonials are actually part of a larger student initiative in light of the hate crimes. UGBC and other student groups organized Unity Day, in which students and faculty members relayed their testimonials of injustice on campus and projected their insights for the future of BC. 1,500 students were given t-shirts to represent solidarity, to recreate the image of the superfan from being not just a superfan for athletics, but a superfan for justice.
And also in mid-October, a movement who identifies themselves as Truth was created to challenge the more institutional policies that this university has with regards to hate crimes and racism and intolerance in general, because they believe that even though these hate crimes were committed by people, the institution itself, it reinforces the attitudes that allow these things to happen.
And despite these heinous situations that we outsiders often face, this is a clear example of students trying to change the culture at BC for the better.
Alright, so we're going to head over to Campanella Day.
Yes.
So I hope everyone enjoyed the bathroom. Here we are in 21 Campanella Way, and here are the offices of the undergraduate government at Boston College, better known as UGBC.
As a matter of fact, UGBC actually has a long-standing tradition of upholding Boston College's mission. In the 1970s, the president actually began the PULSE program.
So what does UGBC do today?
Today, UGBC's main focus is the allocation of funding to different student groups so they can plan events. I'm not too sure, so let's get Evan. He's the Director of Academic Affairs.
Well, hello. Welcome.
Welcome.
Besides our great tree decorating ability, we also do a couple things in academic affairs. Two of the things we're working on are diversifying the core curriculum and working on student representation. Now, it might not be the most exciting thing, but actually diversifying the core curriculum is very important, because that's the one thing that all BC students do together. What we're trying to do is make sure the core curriculum gives a balanced perspective that isn't racist, classist, sexist, or heterosexist when looking at the history, social sciences, natural sciences, and especially in our cultural diversity core, which is supposed to help students be more tolerant. And we've been trying to work on that this year, but we've run into a couple of problems. And some of them include lack of student representation and decision making. Because in the way that the university works, students actually aren't very well represented sometimes. Sometimes we actually don't even have students on committees that make decisions, or we don't know where the decisions are made. So what we're trying to do is create a system where students are on all the committees that are making decisions, that the students who are on those committees are representative, and that there's some system where everyone knows what's going on. So that's some of the things we're working on. I hope that helped.
That's awesome.
Alright, well, if we continue this way, there are some other offices that you'd probably like to see.
Yeah, the space is kind of tight. It would really help if we had a student center.
So here we are in Gaston Hall, which is one of the oldest and probably most ornate buildings on this campus.
Gaston is actually one of the most symbolic buildings for HANA students on this campus.
That's right. About 10 years ago, progressive AHANA students and the undergraduate student government rose up against indifference and created the AHANA Leadership Council, a space to represent themselves and their interests. This impetus for self-representation was part of a long and often suppressed tradition of AHANA activism at Boston College, which includes the 1970 takeover of Gaston Hall, this exact place, and the creation of the AHANA acronym by Valerie Lewis and Alfred Feliciano, then undergraduate students in 1979. The history of AHANA student movements is not only rich and inspirational, but also telling of the bureaucratic nature of the Boston College administration, which can generally be described as a group of individuals willing to listen to you scream and watch you bleed until you graduate, instead of proactively or even semi-seriously addressing your concerns. This comes from personal experience, as my leadership position has gotten me into meetings with deans of various aspects of the school who literally do not care, or do not even know that they should care about, for example, the lack of a hate crime protocol or the extreme Western bias in our academic program. The situation is that we are thrown blindly, ill-equipped into the Boston College community with little supervision and expected, at least in writing, to behave and show compassion to one another. While some may disagree, I find that compassion and good behavior are hard to find, as there are few instances in which students are actually held accountable for their actions. For instance, this summer, the office designated for the AHANA Leadership Council was desecrated with a swastika symbol on the dry erase board and glue on the printer. This was part of a larger attack on the second floor of 21 Campanella Way that targeted the African American Center, where groups like the Black Student Forum and NAACP meet, and the de facto Gay Resource Center, the only semi-safe space for GLBT organizations and students to convene. What's more, fellow progressive student leaders have been continually misrepresented by campus publications, namely the rag claiming conservative Catholic values, The Observer, while The Heights, BC's biweekly independent newspaper, is only better because they are not so forwardly mean or racist. I have not seen nor heard of any recourse, let alone retribution, for these offenses. During my time as a student here at Boston College, I have survived hate crimes, sexual assault, libel, death glares, and racist whispers. I've boiled over with rage in class trying to navigate the politics of representation. I've been told that I'm too serious, that I should get used to it because racism exists in the real world. I've been coddled by some administrators, shunned by others, lied to and disregarded. They, you, don't believe us. But come read what I've read. Take the professors I've been lucky enough to be taught by. Open your eyes to the real mainstream, the one that won't tolerate your indifference anymore. And that's pretty much a summary of how I feel about my life as a student leader and an AHANA person at Boston College. So moving on.
We are back in O'Neill Plaza. This concludes our tour. We hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, we've enjoyed showing you different places on campus that represents really important events in the history of the school in terms of the AHANA community, the GLBT community, and women on this campus. And also, don't forget that there are many students on this campus that are working to improve the conditions, even though all of the stuff that we've described is true and does plague the lives of many of us here.
That's right. We want you to know that if you choose to come to Boston College, there is a support network for students who feel like they don't belong or feel like they're being hated on for the color of their skin, their sexual orientation, or even their gender, or any other the ways that we categorize and subdivide people in society. So make your choice wisely, and when you come to BC, if you do, be an active and engaged citizen.
These are alternative realities of Boston College. We as students embody them.
We have a deep concern for all members of our community.
We recognize the important contribution of a diverse student body, faculty, and staff.
Academic freedom,
We want to propel this university towards a culture of respect,
which ensures the safety of each individual through living justly together.
We demand that our university, at the very least,
live up to its Jesuit commitment to social justice through respect for and attentive care to the well-being of every individual in the community.
If you choose to come to Boston College, we ask you not to be a tourist.
Rather, be an engaged and enlightened person who works to leave
BC better than you found it. We, members of the Boston College community, demand that our university recognize its alternate realities.
to realize its mission, the community must embrace all its members.
I am Mexicana, feminist, pro-choice, BC student.
I am Quaker, I am a representative, I am funny, and I love everyone.
I am black, I am poor, I am anarchist, I am an underclassman.
A feminist, part of the GLBT community.
I am a black and Cuban student leader.
I am white, I am male. I am the typical BC student. I am middle class. I am ignorant to these alternative realities.
I am queer, pro-feminist, Latino, and pissed. We are BC.